Every year on the third Monday of January, the United States comes together to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a remarkable man who dedicated his life to fighting for equality and justice for all people. This day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, is not just a day off from school or work. It is a day to remember and honor his commitment to peace and justice. Remembering and reflecting upon the past is crucial. It helps us understand how far we have come and the challenges that still lie ahead. By remembering Dr. King's message of peace, equality, and justice, we are reminded of the importance of fighting for what is right, even when it is difficult. Remembering Dr. King is not just about looking back, but also about looking forward. It is about continuing his work by striving for a more just and equitable society for all. By remembering Dr. King, we keep his dream alive. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1929. Atlanta, a city with a rich history, was a place of both opportunity and deep-seated racial divisions. The streets of Atlanta, bustling with life, were also marked by the stark realities of segregation. He grew up in a time when segregation, the separation of people based on their race, was the law in many parts of the United States. This legal separation meant that black and white people had to use different schools, restaurants, and even water fountains. The signs reading "colored only" were a constant reminder of the inequality that permeated every aspect of life. Black people faced discrimination in education, housing, and public spaces. Schools for black children were often underfunded and overcrowded, while housing was restricted to certain areas, often the least desirable parts of town. Public transportation was another battleground, with black passengers required to sit at the back of the bus or give up their seats to white passengers. From a young age, Dr. King experienced the injustice of segregation firsthand. He saw how his family and friends were treated unfairly simply because of the color of their skin. These early experiences shaped his understanding of the world and ignited a passion for justice and equality. He saw how black people were treated as second-class citizens. They were denied the same opportunities and rights as white people, and this systemic discrimination affected every aspect of their lives. The constant struggle for dignity and respect was a daily reality for the black community. These experiences had a profound impact on him and fueled his desire to fight for equality. He realized that the only way to bring about change was through collective action and peaceful protest. The seeds of his future leadership in the civil rights movement were sown during these formative years. He knew that things had to change. Dr. King was determined to dedicate his life to the cause of justice, to challenge the status quo, and to inspire others to join him in the fight for a more equitable society. His journey was just beginning, but his resolve was unwavering. Dr. King believed in the power of nonviolence and peaceful protests to bring about change. His journey towards becoming a prominent leader in the civil rights movement was marked by his unwavering commitment to justice and equality. From a young age, King was deeply influenced by the teachings of his father, a Baptist minister, and the injustices he witnessed in the segregated South. These early experiences shaped his resolve to fight for a better future for all people, regardless of race. He was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, who used nonviolent resistance to fight for India's independence. Gandhi's philosophy of satyagraha, or truth force, resonated deeply with King. He saw in Gandhi's struggle a powerful example of how love and nonviolence could be used as tools for social change. King studied Gandhi's methods extensively, incorporating them into his own approach to civil rights activism. This blend of Christian love and Gandhian nonviolence became the cornerstone of King's philosophy. Dr. King adopted Gandhi's philosophy and used it to challenge racial segregation in the United States. He believed that nonviolent resistance was not only a moral choice but also a practical strategy for achieving social justice. By refusing to meet violence with violence, King and his followers aimed to expose the inherent injustice of segregation and discrimination. This approach required immense courage and discipline, as protesters often faced brutal opposition from those who sought to maintain the status quo. He led many peaceful protests and marches, including the famous Montgomery bus boycott. This boycott was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement, demonstrating the power of collective action and nonviolent resistance. It began in 1955, after Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus. the black community of Montgomery, Alabama, rallied together to boycott the city's buses, demanding an end to segregation. This boycott started when Rosa Parks, a black woman, refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white man. Her act of defiance became a symbol of the struggle for civil rights and inspired many others to take a stand against injustice. Parks's courage and the subsequent boycott highlighted the everyday acts of resistance that fueled the movement. It also brought Dr. King to national prominence as a leader who could articulate the aspirations and frustrations of the black community. The boycott lasted for over a year and brought national attention to the issue of segregation. It was a testament to the resilience and determination of the black community, who endured harassment, violence, and economic hardship to stand up for their rights. The success of the boycott not only led to the desegregation of Montgomery's buses, but also energized the broader civil rights movement. It showed that nonviolent resistance could bring about meaningful change and set the stage for future campaigns led by Dr. King and other civil rights leaders. In 1963, Dr. King organized the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This massive demonstration brought together over 250,000 people in Washington, D.C., to demand an end to racial segregation and discrimination. It was at this march that Dr. King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, in which he shared his vision of a society where people of all races would be treated equally. His powerful words resonated with millions of Americans and became a rallying cry for the civil rights movement. Dr. King's efforts, along with the work of countless other activists, led to significant progress in the fight for civil rights. Their relentless pursuit of justice and equality was not just a moment in history, but a movement that reshaped the very fabric of American society. From the streets filled with peaceful protesters to the halls of Congress where laws were debated and passed, the impact of their work is still felt today. The courage and determination displayed by these individuals serve as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when people come together for a common cause. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, outlawing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This landmark legislation was a monumental step forward in the quest for equality. It addressed the systemic injustices that had plagued the nation for centuries and provided a legal framework to challenge discriminatory practices. The signing of the Civil Rights Act by President Lyndon B. Johnson was a historic moment, symbolizing the federal government's commitment to upholding the principles of justice and equality for all its citizens. The act not only prohibited discrimination in public places, but also enforced desegregation in schools and ensured equal employment opportunities. The following year, the Voting Rights Act was passed, which aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from exercising their right to vote. This legislation was crucial in dismantling the various tactics used to disenfranchise black voters, such as literacy tests and poll taxes. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was a direct response to the widespread voter suppression that had long denied African Americans their fundamental democratic rights. By ensuring federal oversight of voter registration and election procedures in areas with a history of discrimination, the act played a pivotal role in increasing voter participation and representation among African Americans. These legislative victories were a testament to the power of nonviolent resistance and the tireless efforts of Dr. King and his fellow activists. Their strategy of peaceful protest and civil disobedience not only garnered national attention, but also highlighted the moral imperative for change. Dr. King's eloquent speeches and unwavering commitment to justice inspired millions and mobilized a diverse coalition of supporters. The legacy of these achievements extends beyond the laws themselves. They represent a profound shift in the national consciousness towards greater inclusivity and respect for human rights. The enduring impact of their work continues to inspire new generations to advocate for social justice and equality. Tragically, Dr. King was assassinated in 1968 at the age of 39. His death was a tremendous loss for the civil rights movement and for the world. Despite his untimely death, Dr. King's legacy continues to inspire people around the world to fight for justice and equality. His message of peace and nonviolence remains as relevant today as it was during his lifetime. He taught us that change is possible and that each of us has a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a day to reflect on his life and work. It is a day to celebrate the progress that has been made in civil rights. It is also a day to acknowledge that the fight for equality is not over. Many people observe Martin Luther King Jr. Day by participating in marches and rallies, volunteering in their communities, or attending events that celebrate Dr. King's life and legacy. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is not just a holiday, it is a call to action. It is a reminder that we all have a responsibility to fight for justice and equality for everyone. By remembering Dr. King's legacy and continuing his work, we can help to create a more just and equitable world for all.